I suspect they're going to want to announce this, get rolling with the promotion. There's a lot of history there. And you have Arman sit in the front row and you say he is next. Like, let's get some decorum here. Let's start figuring out who's next. What's the pecking order? People misunderstood what I was trying to say. They're like, what? You're saying Paddy above Arman? No, I'm not saying. But if you watch fighting for more than 6 months, you understand that a lot of this is based on timing, not always on merit. Number one contender is without a doubt, without question, Arman Tsarukyan. But timing.
Everyone's telling you the biggest lie in combat sports right now. They're saying wait your turn, be patient, and your moment will come. But that's complete garbage, and I'm about to expose exactly why that mentality destroys careers before they even start. Real champions don't wait for opportunities. They rip them from the hands of weaker fighters who think they deserve a shot. While you're sitting there hoping for the perfect matchup, someone hungrier is already taking your spot. Because here's what separates legends from wannabes. Champions force the entire organization to revolve around them. They don't just win fights. They control the narrative so completely that the UFC has no choice but to build around their presence.
Now, that fight isn't scheduled, believe it or not, for the January PLE, if you will. Still not sure what to call it. Are we calling it pay-per-view still? What are we calling these?
Numbered event.
I don't feel like it rolls off the tongue.
And that's what it's called.
It sounds like that's not the plan. What I'm hearing the plan is frontrunner, Kayla versus Amanda. Now, could they do both? Sure, of course. Why not? But I'm not hearing that that's a part of the mix. And so if that's not a part of the mix, if it's not Paddy versus ILIA...
Look, I get it. You hear all this talk about timing and strategy, about waiting for the right opponent at the right moment. But that's loser mentality disguised as wisdom. The Octagon doesn't care about your 5-year plan or your carefully mapped road to the title. It's a living, breathing war zone that demands immediate action. True fighters operate in a constant state of readiness, where their only strategy is pure, calculated violence. The second you hesitate, the instant you show any weakness or doubt, that opportunity gets snatched by someone savage enough to seize it. And once it's gone forever.
Is Sydney, and now we're talking about, and obviously it's not happening there, and now we're talking about March. Like, there's no way. Arman versus ILIA is the #1 fight in the lightweight division. And dare I say, it's close. It's close to as big as Paddy versus ILIA, given how popular Arman is getting in that part of the world and just how good he looked in this fight. And so I say, if we're not doing it on January 24th, and it sounds at least as of now that we're not, scrap those plans. ILIA, Arman, Paddy.
Now here's where it gets absolutely wild. People keep asking about the why behind all this, and that question reveals everything wrong with how most people think about fighting. They want to understand the deeper meaning, the philosophical foundation of combat. But champions already know the why. It's burned into their DNA through years of brutal training and devastating losses. They don't need motivation speeches or complex psychological breakdowns. Their why is simple and terrifying. They'd rather die than lose. That primal drive, that savage hunger for dominance, that's what separates them from every other fighter who talks a good game but crumbles under pressure.
It was the plan, it was the right move when Arman just fought. It was the plan, the right move when Arman was out. When we didn't know how this fight was going to go.
Okay.
When there were a lot of questions about his health, could he make the weight, is his back okay, all this stuff. Now that he looked like that, we got to move on. We have to do it. I'm sorry.
Couldn't Arman get the fight, the winner?
Yeah, but then we're talking about Arman not fighting for like 10 months. If this fight isn't happening in January, and then let's say March at the earliest, right? Because it's not going to happen in Sydney.
But wait, it gets even more insane. You've got fighters out there discussing postponements, hypothetical matchups, and future possibilities like they're playing some video game where you can pause and strategize. The Octagon doesn't wait for anyone. It doesn't care about your weight cut struggles, your training camp injuries, or your personal drama. True champions understand that every single day they're not fighting, someone else is getting stronger, hungrier, more dangerous. They forge their path through raw aggression and unstoppable forward momentum. While others make excuses, champions adapt and overcome.
No? October? Oh, we're talking about another year out for Arman?
I understand that from the Arman Tsarukyan perspective, but if we're touching all the chess pieces, right? If we're accounting for every piece on the board, I think you only get one shot with Paddy and ILIA. And you have to take it.
Paddy beats Gaethje. That is not a risk. You're not putting him in there against Arman. Paddy beats Gaethje for sure.
And get this, people are seriously debating whether Paddy Pimblett's best win against Michael Chandler means anything significant. Are you kidding me right now? That kind of delusional thinking is exactly what keeps fighters stuck in mediocrity forever. You can't just impose your wishful thinking onto the brutal reality of elite-level combat. The cage strips away every lie, every bit of manufactured hype, every unproven claim. It reveals the truth with surgical precision. Real champions earn their status by conquering legitimate killers, not by avoiding tough fights and hoping for easier paths to glory.
Like Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, those guys are not in their primes. Like,
who do you think wins, GC? Paddy or Gaethje?
Yeah, Paddy, but I'm not sold on it. I do agree with Rick that you kind of do only have the one shot at Paddy versus Ilya. It's just like in the fight game, these plans that you lay out can so easily get
well, what the hell? Then what do we do with Armin?
He gets the winner.
What the hell? Then he's the guy's not fighting for a year.
And at that point, that would mean one fight since
It's
UFC
awful.
300.
Oh, it's awful.
From UFC 300 to like UFC like 335, he would have.
Hey, what is he, Kamaru Usman?
If we're coming at this from the perspective of what's best for Armin Tsarukyan, I agree.
Them always speak.
Here's the kicker, though. This isn't some perfectly choreographed dance where your game plan unfolds exactly as rehearsed. This is chaos incarnate, where million-dollar careers hang by threads thinner than spider webs. Those intricate strategies you spent months perfecting, they fall apart the moment you take an unexpected shot or when an injury changes everything mid-fight. That's where the pretenders crumble and the real champions shine. They possess adaptive combat intelligence that allows them to completely reinvent their approach, while blood is streaming down their face and the crowd is screaming for violence.
From the perspective of what's best for the UFC,
is there a big difference between Paddy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would attract a much wider audience. It would attract more casuals, but man, from a meritocracy standpoint, it's Armin.
I literally just said, like, I don't really rate the wins that Paddy Pimblett has on his resume. Like, I don't make any secret about it.
How do you rate this one? Is beating Hooker bigger than beating Chandler?
Honestly, they're probably at the same point in their career in the way that they both dominated each of them. I kind of rate them the same.
But beating Charles Oliveira, to me, matters more than...
Now listen to this part carefully. The Octagon doesn't hand out titles based on social media buzz or manufactured storylines. It mercilessly exposes frauds by forcing them to face absolute killers fighters like Chandler and other elite-level assassins who operate on a completely different plane of existence. Unless you step directly into that fire and break their will completely, you're not a champion. You're just another fighter hoping the hype machine keeps your name relevant long enough to get a lucky break. There's no middle ground in this brutal reality.
Ask me who I think is the best lightweight on the planet right now, it's Armin Tsarukyan. I think Armin Tsarukyan is the best lightweight on the planet right now.
Oh, better than Ilya.
And I thought that he was number 2 behind Islam. As soon as Islam left that division, I think he's the best lightweight on the planet. But if you're asking me to run the UFC's business, if Paddy Pimblett is there, he's now ranked number 5 in their rankings, I believe. I saw graphics being made about.
What is that?
Dan Hooker moved down. You got to move Paddy up.
You take this shot while you have it. You take this shot while...
Hold up. Are we seriously debating whether this is just about having the best technique or the nastiest submission game? Wake up, because that amateur hour thinking will get you destroyed. This isn't a martial arts tournament where the best technician wins a trophy. This is psychological warfare combined with physical destruction, where understanding the complete landscape of the sport matters more than any single skill. Look at fighters like Armin Tsarukyan, pure technical mastery. Then you've got Paddy, a lightning rod who commands attention and controls narratives. Real champions don't just win individual fights, they dominate the entire ecosystem and force the promotion to bend to their will.
I feel like they've been coming out on Mondays lately.
Oh, and also, Hooker losing to Armin shouldn't necessarily drop you down. Like, that's the number 1 guy. You shouldn't get penalized for losing to the top guy.
Paddy's number 5. We don't need to think about it.
I think it was the way that he lost.
Sure.
I'm I'm with you on everything about Armin, every single bit of it. As I said, I think he's the best lightweight on the planet right now. I think he can beat ILIA Topuria. I think he probably will beat ILIA Topuria if they face off. I believe in Armin Tsarukyan too.
But here's where everything gets completely twisted. Sometimes it feels like we're supposed to ignore rankings entirely because they've become meaningless political tools. But losing to an apex predator like Armin isn't just a defeat on paper. It's a brutal diagnosis from the octagon itself. It exposes every flaw in your combat IQ and reveals any weakness in your warrior spirit. In that moment of truth, you have two choices: evolve from that savage lesson or remain forever trapped in aspirant limbo, watching real champions claim the glory you thought you deserved. Armin operates on a level that most fighters only dream about, combining physical gifts with strategic genius and the ruthless precision of someone who demands perfection.
Do the best business. You do Paddy versus ILIA while you have this opportunity right now, and then Armin fights the winner. And if it's ILIA, you've got that same fight that you were angling toward, and it's built-in business. And if it's Paddy, who then beat ILIA Topuria, now you've got Armin versus that guy, which is even bigger. It's perfect for me from a business perspective. I think you just do it while you have it.
Foaming at the mouth to see Armin versus ILIA. Foaming at the mouth.
You'll get it. 2 fights from now.
You know what pisses me off about all this? I want to see ILIA versus Armin so bad. I want to see ILIA versus Islam so bad, and I feel like we're not getting either of those next.
What in the hell are we even talking about right now? Do you understand what's really at stake here? This conversation isn't about corporate strategy or business decisions made in boardrooms by executives who have never felt leather gloves connect with their face. When you're discussing top-tier killers, the kind of supreme athletes who willingly enter that arena knowing they might leave on a stretcher, you're talking about something far more primal. Real champions don't wait for ideal situations or bigger paydays. Their fighting spirit demands they face and conquer the most dangerous threat available right now, in this moment, because that's how legends are forged.
I'm surprised that you're so down on Paddy versus ILIA.
I was going to say both those fights
They're not as
have
good as
ILIA
that.
Topuria in
I know.
them, and then the third one also has ILIA Topuria in it against Paddy Pimblett, which might be his biggest rival, dating back to what, 2021 with the hand sanitizer boy days.
No, 100%. Listen, I've been the one carrying the
That's why
Paddy
I'm
versus
surprised.
ILIA flag for all this time, and it's a tough day for the people who say that I only pick based on my relationships. No one's probably been meaner to me than Paddy, but like we got to call it like we see it. That.
And here's what nobody else is telling you about recency bias and manufactured drama. All that trash talk, those artificial rivalries, that social media beef, it's complete noise designed to distract you from what actually matters. The cage exposes every bit of empty bluster with surgical precision. Champions don't just participate in rivalry, they weaponize it, converting that raw animosity into devastating performance when it counts. It's not about who talks the loudest or has the flashiest highlight reel. It's about whose combat mind operates so efficiently under pressure that they force their opponent to abandon their game plan and fight desperately just to survive. So there you have it. The path to championship glory isn't paved with patience and perfect timing. It's built through savage aggression, adaptive intelligence, and the warrior spirit to face any challenge immediately. This isn't about watching fighters compete for our entertainment. This is about understanding what it truly means to be utterly supreme in the most unforgiving sport on the planet. The fighters who reach legendary status don't wait for opportunities to appear. They create them through sheer force of will and undeniable skill. The question is, are you ready to stop making excuses and start taking what's yours, or will you keep waiting while someone hungrier claims your destiny? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is far from over. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what really separates champions from pretenders, smash that like button, subscribe for more real talk about combat sports, and hit the notification bell because we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one. But hold on, because we're about to dive into something that's going to completely shatter everything you think you know about championship mentality. You see fighters posting their training clips on Instagram, showing off their perfect technique in controlled environments, and everyone starts believing that's what championship preparation looks like. That's absolute madness. Real champions aren't training for social media likes. They're preparing for war in ways that would break ordinary people's minds. They're sparring with killers who are actively trying to separate them from consciousness. They're drilling scenarios where everything goes wrong simultaneously, where their corner is screaming contradictory advice, where blood is obscuring their vision, and where their body is screaming to quit. Think about this for a second. While you're watching highlight reels and debating who has better striking or grappling, true champions are developing something far more dangerous: the ability to impose their will when nothing is working according to plan. They're not just technically sound, they're psychologically weaponized. When their jab isn't landing, when their takedowns are getting stuffed, when the crowd is against them and the judges seem biased, they find another way to break their opponent's spirit. That's the difference between someone who wins fights and someone who builds an empire. Champions don't just adapt to adversity, they transform it into fuel for even more devastating performance. Now here's something that's going to blow your mind completely. The fighters everyone's calling prospects and future stars, most of them are already finished, and they don't even know it yet. They're so busy managing their image and protecting their record that they're avoiding the exact fights that would forge them into actual champions. Meanwhile, the real killers are seeking out the most dangerous possible opponents because they understand something fundamental about combat sports. You don't become great by beating people you're supposed to beat. You become legendary by destroying fighters who everyone thinks might destroy you. Every time you take the safe fight, the easy matchup, the favorable stylistic clash, you're choosing comfort over greatness. But wait, it gets even more brutal than that. You've got entire camps built around protecting fighters from real challenges until they're ready for championship-level competition. That's the most backwards thinking imaginable. You know what makes someone championship ready? Getting their face rearranged by elite-level violence and finding a way to come back stronger. You develop championship instincts by surviving situations where quitting seems like the intelligent option. These overprotected prospects step into their first real test and get exposed immediately because they've never had to dig deep when everything is falling apart around them. And here's where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. True champions operate with a completely different relationship to pain and failure. When they get dropped, when they're getting dominated, when their corner is telling them they're losing every round, something switches on inside them that regular fighters simply don't possess. It's not just heart or toughness, it's a systematic rewiring of their nervous system that allows them to perform optimally under the worst possible circumstances. They've trained their minds to interpret extreme pressure as a signal to elevate their performance, rather than as a warning to protect themselves. Listen to this part because it's going to change how you see every fight moving forward. The difference between champions and everyone else isn't visible during the easy moments. Anyone can look dominant when they're winning. The real separation happens in those crucial seconds when everything is on the line, when one mistake means career-altering consequences, when the margin between victory and devastating defeat is measured in milliseconds. Champions don't just survive those moments, they thrive in them. They've conditioned themselves to find clarity in chaos, to make perfect decisions when their brain should be overwhelmed by stress hormones and survival instincts. Now check this out, because most people completely miss this aspect of elite competition. Championships aren't just won on fight night. They're claimed through the accumulation of thousands of tiny decisions made when nobody is watching. While other fighters are choosing the easier sparring partner, the champion is seeking out the most dangerous training available. While others are making excuses about weight cuts or training injuries, champions are finding ways to turn every obstacle into an advantage. They're not just physically preparing for fights, they're systematically eliminating every possible excuse their mind might generate under pressure. But here's what's really going to cook your brain. The mental warfare aspect of championship-level competition operates on levels that casual observers can't even perceive. True champions aren't just trying to win rounds or land significant strikes. They're systematically dismantling their opponent's psychological foundation. They study not just technique and strategy, but how their opponents respond to specific types of pressure. They identify the exact moment when confidence turns to doubt, when aggression becomes desperation, when game plans crumble under the weight of sustained punishment. And get this, the most dangerous fighters aren't necessarily the ones with the most impressive physical attributes. They're the ones who have developed supernatural combat intelligence combined with absolutely unbreakable mental fortitude. They can read micro-expressions in the middle of exchanges, sensing when their opponent is about to break mentally even before the opponent realizes it themselves. This isn't luck or natural talent. It's the result of deliberately seeking out the most challenging possible training environments and refusing to accept anything less than complete mastery of their craft. Here's something that's going to completely flip your perspective on what championship preparation actually looks like. While everyone's focused on technique refinement and physical conditioning, real champions are doing something far more sophisticated. They're programming their subconscious mind to operate optimally under extreme duress. They're not just drilling combinations until they become automatic. They're rewiring their entire nervous system to interpret the sensation of being in mortal danger as a signal to perform at their absolute peak. This is why true champions seem to get better as fights get more desperate and chaotic. Now listen carefully, because this next part reveals everything about why certain fighters achieve legendary status, while others remain forever trapped in the prospect category. Champions don't just train harder, they train smarter in ways that specifically prepare them for the psychological warfare of elite competition. They're not just working on their striking defense, they're conditioning their minds to remain calm and analytical while someone is trying to separate them from consciousness. They're not just improving their cardio, they're developing the mental stamina to make perfect strategic decisions in round 5 when their body is screaming and their corner is panicking. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The gap between championship-level fighters and everyone else isn't just about skill development, it's about fundamental differences in how they process reality itself. When regular fighters see a dangerous opponent, they start calculating risks and looking for ways to avoid potential problems. Champions see the same dangerous opponent and immediately start strategizing how to turn that danger into an opportunity for career-defining victory. They're not trying to minimize risk. They're trying to maximize the potential for legendary performance under the most challenging possible circumstances. And check this out, because most people have no idea how deep this mentality actually goes. True champions don't just accept difficult fights. They specifically seek out the opponents who represent the greatest possible threat to their continued success. They understand that each victory over a legitimate killer doesn't just improve their record, it upgrades their entire psychological operating system. Every time they survive and overcome a situation that should have destroyed them, they expand their definition of what's possible under extreme pressure. This is why championship reigns often involve fighters who seem to get more dangerous as the competition gets more elite. Here's what's really going to blow your mind about the championship mindset. These fighters aren't just competing against their opponents, they're competing against their own previous limitations. Every training session, every sparring round, every moment of adversity becomes an opportunity to push beyond whatever they thought was their maximum capacity. They're not satisfied with being good enough to win. They're obsessed with discovering the absolute limits of human performance under combat conditions. This is why true champions often seem to perform impossible feats when everything should be working against them.